Baseball fans. This is Phil Dixon, and I'm here with another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. And when I put it on Facebook, I can put a few more words in, so I might say This Day in African American Baseball History. Trying to get my mustache here, getting going good. Anyway, yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight, and coming a little bit earlier. I might try to make this, which is about 7 o'clock Central Time, be 8 o'clock Eastern Time, but I might try to make this more of the time I come on between 6 to 7. I'm trying to find the best times to come on and do this live. So once again, today we're looking. Today, of course, is September 17th, 2025. So we're going to look at some interesting things that happened in the past. And so I'm going to jump right in here. And one of the first things I've got is let's go to 1899. Now, if you're new to this broadcast, what I do is I give a historic fact that happened on this particular day. And these facts are things I've researched in my 46 year career as a researcher on the African American baseball topic. And then I give some commentary. Okay, so let's go with this first one. We're going to go to September 17th, 1899. And the Chicago Union Giants were playing the Chicago Columbia Giants there in Chicago. And so anyway, it's a big game. So big game. And of course, the Columbia Giants won, and they ended up taking the first and the second game. This was the second game of the 5-game series for the championship. Anyway, it was a great game for the Columbia Giants. Home Run Johnson, that's Grand Home Run Johnson, had 3 hits and a double for the Giants, Columbia Giants. And then on the Unions, they had the famous Bill Monroe. Bill Monroe had 3 hits, a double and a triple. That guy was just simply a great player. And then the catcher for the Unions, Robert Jackson, hit a home run. So that was an important game. And so I like talking about that. And so let's break down a little commentary on this one. Well, first of all, you got Home Run Johnson, Grand Home Run Johnson. To me, he is probably one of the most underrated home run hitters and ball players of that whole period. That should be in the Hall of Fame. If I had to talk about a couple of people that I think deserve way more recognition, it's going to be Grand Home Run Johnson. The other one is going to be Clarence Williams out of Harrisburg, who played with the Cuban Giants, also the Cuban Ex-Giants. And who else would I think? Well, Bill Monroe, of course. He's a great player. You can see right there, he's playing well as usual. Let's see, what's another one that I like from that period? Well, I'll think about a couple more. But those are some great ball players. Not Harry Burns, but oh shucks, Buckner, Harry Buckner. That's what I want to say. Harry Buckner. Harry Buckner was probably the first great pitcher hitter. And this is a guy who could hit home runs and pitch very well. And he played on some pretty good teams. Doesn't get enough recognition at all. Buckner ended up in the last year of his career, the last years of his career in baseball, in his life, he was the trainer for the Milwaukee Brewers in the American Association. Grand Home Run Johnson ended up moving to Buffalo, New York, worked for a railroad. Bill Monroe, who played very well in this game, ended up dying from tuberculosis, I think 1914. And so this is just history that we're not talking enough about. So I enjoy coming on and talking about these particular people. You know, one thing I like about Bill Monroe, and he was good friends with Andrew Brew Foster, and one thing they had in common that both of their parents were ministers. And so I like to talk about that. So anyway, that was September the 17th, 1899. So we're going to get into the new century here, or the 20th century. And we're going to go to September 17th, 1911. John Donaldson, a pitcher for Walter Brown's Tennessee Rats, struck out 19 batters in his team's 15-0 win at Lee, Iowa. Brown's Tennessee Rats, John Donaldson. John Donaldson's a young guy. I talk about John Donaldson all the time. I'm going to keep on talking about him. I'm going to keep on talking about Bill Monroe. I'm going to keep on talking about like Home Run Johnson. Guys, you're going to get sick of me talking about these guys because of the things that they do and the way that they play. They deserve more recognition. And in America, these guys never got the recognition then. They got articles in newspapers that talked about their games like a box score, but no feature articles. And so it's up to us to keep this history alive, and that's what I'm doing. So John Donaldson, originally out of Glasgow, Missouri, been there. And actually, I interviewed one of his relatives. She was living in Kansas City. This was probably about 1984, 85, somewhere in there. She passed on a long time ago. And also, I knew a lot about Walter Brown's Tennessee Rats. Now, Walter Brown, they had a minstrel show. And so they would play, come out and, they did blackface and all that kind of thing. They did a lot of plays and stuff. And this was the era before night baseball. So they would come out and do their shows at the local theater at the nighttime, and they would play baseball against the local team in the afternoon. So they came with, two things that forms of entertainment they could bring to the city. And I did interview some of, there's a guy named Clarence Little. I interviewed several of his relatives, his grandson. And actually I interviewed Eddie Dwight's wife, and Dwight played for the Browns Tennessee Rats in the 20s. Chet Brewer played for Browns Tennessee Rats. They had some pretty good players, some big name players too, that ended up coming up to the Negro National League. They were not out from Tennessee at all. This team was originally based out of Holden, Missouri. So I know one time I was down in Nashville, and a guy came in, and I was giving a presentation. He said, "I'd like to learn more about this team from Tennessee called the Tennessee Rats." I had to tell him that they don't come from Tennessee. They actually come from Missouri, and they just use that name. And Walter Brown was a musician, played trumpet, cornet actually, and he was the leader of their musical group that they had with them. And then they had actors and singers and everything like that. So they would come and perform at Chautauqua and then play baseball also. So anyway, John Donaldson got his start with them. Now Holden, Missouri is not that far from Glasgow. So he picked up different guys from around that area. I know Hugh Blackburn, who played with the Monarchs in 1920, was also with him. Johnny Vivens out of Glasgow, just like John Donaldson, a great left-handed pitcher. He was also with Brown's Tennessee Rats. So he picked up players from that part of Missouri, around Columbia, where the University of Missouri is now. He picked up ball players in that area, and they joined with him. And then they would take the Tennessee Rats. They go up to Iowa, Nebraska. I know they went through parts of Missouri, upper parts of Missouri, and they go into North Dakota and South Dakota. So that was the Browns Tennessee Rats. And of course, John Donaldson struck out 19 batters. Man, this John Donaldson, a lefty, could really do it. And I put John Donaldson as one of the greatest left-handed strikeout pitchers of all time. So if you start talking about people like Lefty Groves or Sandy Koufax, you got to mention John Donaldson in there somewhere. He was awfully good. And amongst the African-American players, even in that period, you had Pat Doherty that was with the Leland Giants, who was awfully good, left-hander. And then, of course, you had George Wilson, left-hander, who was very good. Of course, John Donaldson's right in there with him. So I like to talk about John Donaldson all the time. Let's go to another one. We're going to go jump up to the 1920s now. So we're going September 17, 1924. Topeka Jack Johnson, former infielder for the Kansas City, Kansas Giants, who was also a professional boxer. And he was in this particular day, he was boxing. He defeated Indian Joe Klein in a match in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now Topeka Jack Johnson, and whenever I used to go out and talk about Jack Johnson, people always think I'm talking about Jack Johnson, the heavyweight champion. Now this guy, Topeka Jack Johnson, was also a heavyweight, but he was out of Topeka, Kansas, quote. That's why he has the Topeka in front of him, so you wouldn't get him confused with the other Jack Johnson. And so Topeka Jack Johnson actually sparred against Jack Johnson, the heavyweight champion. So he was a good boxer. And how about this? He actually fought Jack Johnson when Jack Johnson was in Leavenworth, Kansas, in the federal prison for the Mann Act, 1920, I think. It might have been, I think it was like Thanksgiving weekend or something like that. They had a fight inside the prison. And so he actually fought Jack Johnson in the exhibition. But Topeka Jack Johnson had been fighting at the same time that he was playing baseball. So he was a professional boxer and a baseball player at the same time. Now he was also had attended college. He went to Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas, and he started the Topeka Giants around 1905. Played with them. He played with the Minneapolis Keystones. He played with the Chicago Union Giants. He played with the Kansas City Kansas Giants, which I mentioned there. In 1910, he started the Kansas City Royal Giants, and he was a really active ball player, athlete, and I like to talk about him too. He's buried in Topeka, Kansas. I've been there as well, and of course, I live fairly close to Topeka, so I get there quite often, and so I would probably say over the years, I probably spoken and presented Topeka over 30 times. So, but you're talking about over a 40 some odd year period. So they know me pretty good up there. So anyway, that's Topeka Jack Johnson. He started some pretty good ball players along the way. Bingo DeMoss, who ended up being Rube Foster's great second baseman. Played for Indianapolis and played for Kansas City before he got there. Sam Struthers, who played for 1910 Leland Giants and a few other teams. Also, as a member of him, got started with Topeka Jack Johnson. Dink Mockle, guy who got me started doing history, also got his start with Topeka Jack Johnson. So I like to talk about him. And once his baseball and sporting days was over, he went and he worked for the fire department and he worked for the police department too in Topeka, Kansas. So Topeka Jack Johnson. Okay, let's go to another one. Let's see. We're going to go to 1937. How about this one? September 17th, 1937, Hall of Fame infielder Orlando Cepeda is born at Ponce, Puerto Rico. Orlando Cepeda. Man, I had a chance to meet him. Somewhere in my collection, I have a ball that he signed for me down when he came to the Negro Leagues Museum and was recognized down there. Good player, man. Good player. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he played for a hot minute with the Kansas City Royals. Got too many ball players inside my head, but when I came along, of course, he was playing with the St. Louis Cardinals back in the 60s when I first started following baseball. So that's him. And then let's go to September 17, 1967. We got the Kansas City Athletics. Rookie center fielder Reggie Jackson hit the first home run of his major league career off of a rookie. Another rookie, Jim Weaver, in the second inning of a 3-2 loss at Anaheim versus the Angels. Interesting thing, the Angels are called the Anaheim Angels now, but when I was a kid, they were called the California Angels, and they had the little hat with the halo on it. And I remember some of my favorite players, Jim Fergosi used to be with them, and Alex Johnson. I remember he came back and won a batting title back during that period. But a good team. So now people don't recognize that, but Reggie hit his first home run off of the Angels. And if I'm not correct, I think Reggie finished up with the Angels, if I'm correct. You can look that up. I did go out to a Disneyland show. It was a Disneyland show, maybe 1987. I went out to California. It was called the Reggie Jackson Show, whatever. It was a baseball card show, and it was given at the Disneyland Hotel. So I went out there, and Chet Brewer came and sat at my table and signed autographs for me. And back in those days, they didn't invite Negro Leaguers to any of these kind of shows. So in those days, when I first started, I would always pay the players myself, and not like I was making a lot of money, but I knew that the day would come when if people saw these guys, they're going to want to see them and get their autographs. So the first guys that came out, I was paying them out of my own pocket. When I got to California, there was one guy, Lou Dials, and he was pretty famous out there. He would go to all the car shows, and I showed up. I'm a young guy in my 20s. No one knew me from Beans because I'm out in the Midwest. they never had seen another black guy who knew so much about Negro League baseball. And I get out there, and every time somebody walked past the table, they say, "Where's Lou?" And I think I must have heard "Where's Lou" about 4,000 times over the weekend. So anyway, I said, "I don't know where Lou is." Look, I said, "But I can tell you who I am." And so anyway, yeah, Lou Dial, he was pretty famous out on the coast. Somebody, if you're watching this, you probably saw Lou back then. We're talking about 1980s, maybe mid to late 80s, 1980s. Yeah, so getting to be a few years back. So let me give one more. Okay, September 17th, 1984. Dwight Doc Gooden struck out 16 members of the Philadelphia Phillies in Philadelphia. Of course, Dwight Gooden is he's peaking out around that time. Good, awfully good pitcher. And the thing that's kind of interesting for me, we start off here talking about John Donaldson struck out 19, and they didn't believe these guys were good enough for the major leagues. I don't know what they were thinking. That's what they tried to tell the public, even though the public, I think, knew different. And because major league teams are, and once again, I hate using American major league, let's use National League, and American League players would come out and play against these players, these black players, and lose all the time. So they knew they were good, but they kind of buffaloed the public and buffaloed the history to make you think that none of these guys were good enough till Jackie Robinson came along. Truth of the matter is, we know they were good enough. And so that's the guy I like to talk about. So from John Donaldson to Topeka Jack Johnson, we're talking about Orlando Cepeda, Reggie Jackson, right up to Doc Gooden, who's still alive today. And I've never met Doc Gooden. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to meet him and shake his hand and maybe take a picture with him. I know him and Darryl Strawberry were quite the teammates there with the Mets. I have met Darryl Strawberry. Darryl's a pastor, and he's like an evangelist, and so he's come to several churches, and I've gone down to see him and had a few a little talk with him, talking about baseball. We always talk about Chet Brewer, because he knew Chet Brewer as well. Chet Brewer was pretty famous up in Los Angeles there, so he knew Chet, and so we find things to talk about. So that kind of does it for me tonight, guys. It's a short broadcast. We're going to get in here under 20 minutes, but this is what I do. I come on and I give you a fact about black baseball, African American baseball that happened on this day, which today is September 17th, and then I add some commentary. So I get people coming in. I leave my comments going, and I get lots of people who come in and they want to talk about other things. And I'm talking about baseball and baseball history. So some of the things you're talking about, I'm looking at your comments, they really don't fit this broadcast. So I'm sure that you can find a broadcast that they do fit. But if you're a fan of baseball and American history, this might be a place that maybe you want to come to and subscribe. We keep things pretty straight here, and we just give you a lot of history. So I do want to thank you for joining us. So I'll be back tomorrow. This weekend I'll be doing some things in Cleveland. So if you're in the Cleveland area around there, come on over to. They're having some things that lead the old League Park, and come on out there and enjoy yourself and hear some great speakers, meet a lot of people, and enjoy the activities. So this is Phil S. Dixon. Hey, if you like what I'm doing also and you want to read more, I've got lots of books out there on this topic. I think I'm up to 9-10 books, so you can always go and get those. So, all right. So thank you guys, and have a nice evening. I'm about to sign off, and this is Phil Dixon. See you again next time we do This Day in Black Baseball History.